On this Thanksgiving Day, it seems you all are thankful for the current amount of quarterbacks that are on the roster.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today.
All right, welcome in. Happy Thanksgiving. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. We appreciate you joining us today, or if you're listening on Friday, happy Black Friday. Nebraska football plays today. It plays Friday. Iowa is headed to town, 11 a.m. kickoff. We will have you covered, but today we're going to dive into the mailbag and answer your questions. So let's get started right in. A couple of Thanksgiving-themed questions off the top. We go to James. He says, when viewing this season like it is a Thanksgiving dinner, where does Nebraska sit? At the adult table, a wobbly leaf in the center of that adult table? So the first option is a good seat at the adult table, then a wobbly leaf at the center of the adult table. Or are the Huskers still at the kiddie table?
Yeah, there is, like the large Thanksgiving table always grows a little bit. You have the extra, the extender, the leaf, as James mentioned. But I'm also thinking about, the amount of chairs you'll have at your table at the normal time, and then the amount of chairs it grows to on Thanksgiving. And sometimes you just don't have enough like proper chairs to really make it look nice. So you get a couple of the folding chairs out. Maybe Nebraska's on a, creaky little folding chair or something like that, right?
It could actually collapse if it eats too much.
Yeah, but they're at the big table. They're at the big table, but it's a little shorter than all the other chairs, and it just kind of makes some noise. And maybe that's what I got for that.
Yeah, the kiddie table is like if you play in the MAC or
right.
If you're in the Big Ten, you're at the good table. It might not mean that you're situated in a comfortable chair with a great spot to see the TV. Like that's not Nebraska right now. But it has pulled up a seat and is at least has a spot to put its plate. We'll put it that way.
Maybe you're like left-handed and you didn't get your spot on the corner, so it's awkward.
Sensitive about that. Come on.
A lot of people are like, I gotta have the spot.
I don't. I've never once thought of that. I'm left-handed, and I've never once thought I need a spot at the corner. But it does make some sense. I understand what you're saying. Maybe I've gone all my life without actually considering that as a key to Thanksgiving table eating.
Yeah, check it out. Get into it. See if it works out for you. Here's Vincent Napa. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm going to take you up on your feeling welcome to go outside of football question. Okay. If turkey is not an option at Thanksgiving, which of the following meats would you choose? Ham, duck, or pheasant? Vince says he has friends that hunt.
Yeah, I don't think I've had duck, but I looked it up, and it said that duck is more of a dark meat that's kind of fatty in the mold of like a almost a steak kind of taste to it. I would like to try it. I would like to try duck. I'm gonna need to have my turkey at Thanksgiving. Like
I was gonna say,
I don't understand why it wouldn't be an option, but
yeah, I'm not sure where we're going. Maybe this is just a hypothetical, or it's like let's take turkey off the table. But yeah, there's always going to be a turkey at Thanksgiving. I'm fine with the ham. Like I'll get a slice, because usually it's an option as a secondary to the turkey on Thanksgiving. And by the way, I mean you're gonna hear a lot. There's a lot of people you listen to on the radio or you hear about in your life who are just like, why would I eat turkey? Why would I eat a subpar meat, for this great meal? Here's why. Because it's Thanksgiving. Okay. Not every meal needs to be a steak dinner or anything like that. Of course, steak is better, but eat turkey on Thanksgiving. Thank you.
And turkey is good. I will just say that I think turkey is very good. So I don't want to veer to any of those meats, but just to play ball with Vince here, I would like to just try duck and see how it hits the palate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've had a little of that some on occasion. It's rare, but I think it's pretty good.
Pheasant is more of a chicken like.
Yeah, I've only had like breaded like pheasant, like they're basically pheasant nuggets, like pheasant McNuggets. Those are good, but not usually at Thanksgiving.
Interesting. Okay. From Jonathan in Mesa, Arizona. I was thinking about Nebraska's roster, and it made me wonder how many players is this year's team away from being in the playoff. I was thinking maybe it was 4 to 6 or 2 D linemen, 1 to 2 O linemen, maybe 1 linebacker. What do you think, Connor?
That is, I think it's an inexact science. I don't, it's so hard to tell. I mean, it's so hard to tell. I mean, there is a world where this team makes the playoff, if a couple things bounce their way. So it's never that easy.
I would have said that last week.
Yeah.
I don't know if I say it after 37-10 at Penn State, but
yeah, that's.
But
true.
I know where you're going. I understand where you're going. I think like a great defensive lineman, another running back, and a couple of offensive tackles who were just not a concern at any point in the year. So you had real depth at that position. Let's say if Nebraska added those 4 players, that then some of the other holes would have been not covered up, but actually corrected. Like you might have issues at defensive end where you have the inability to get consistent pressure on the QB. But if there's somebody in the middle who's like an All-American level tackle, all of a sudden those defensive ends become better because maybe an opposing offensive line is not they can't spend as much energy shutting down Williams Winery and Keona Davis or Cam Lenhart.
I do think the quickest way to erase your problems or your warts is to have just a freak edge rusher, who gets 15 sacks or something like that. Like if Randy Gregory was on this team, I think the season looks a whole lot different,
If Aiden Hutchinson was on this team,
right?
Reggie White. Let's start putting the best NFL players that you could find on this team. Yes, that would make a difference. And to be clear, like being a playoff team is not being Ohio State. Like you can be a very flawed playoff team. So I'm going to say like 4 to 5 players. That's what it's a lot.
Here's Jack in Fort Collins, Colorado.
4 players.
When was the last time Nebraska won a game where they were an underdog according to Vegas? My guess is Iowa 2022. Oh, I could get that information for you. Do you have it, Mitch? Did you look this up?
No. I'm sadly unprepared to answer this question, but my guess also, Jack, would be Iowa of 2022, the Mickey Joseph. Somebody questioned whether Mickey Joseph beat Iowa. I saw it in the hundreds of YouTube comments that were flowing through the other day. Sorry, I didn't dive in there on whatever episode that was. I think it was the episode right after the Penn State game. But I did see one that flashed across my screen about how Mickey Joseph never beat Iowa. And yes, he did. He did it 3 years ago this weekend as the interim coach in his swan song with the Huskers.
I'll get to work on this. We can circle back around. And I'll do this work in the background as we continue on.
Yeah. So, all right. I'll just answer. I'll ask and start to answer, and then Connor, you're welcome to jump in, of course, to this next question. It says from Aaron in West Omaha, what is the most likely number of quarterbacks on the roster during spring practice next year who have starting experience at the Power 4 level? And I think the answer to that question is 1. I think that Nebraska will not retain one of its 2 quarterbacks on the roster who has starting Power 4 experience. Is Dylan Raiola going to transfer? I think that's what you're asking there, Aaron, under the guise of that little question that you just answered. So there was the CBS report on Wednesday that said Nebraska is bracing to prepare for Dylan Raiola to enter the transfer portal. Like, you just described the transfer portal there. Congratulations, CBS. That is every team that has a player who might be coveted by someone else. Every team. Nebraska is also bracing for many other players to prepare to enter the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. You have to go battle to retain them.
By the way, Nebraska is also bracing for players who are not on their roster, who are on other rosters, to enter the transfer portal so they can go to Nebraska.
So the wording there is not actually new information.
Right.
But I do believe it's trending in that direction where you're going to see a quarterback explore entering the transfer portal. It's hard to say it any other way, because I'm not going to sit here and say that Dylan Raiola is on his way to the portal, that he's gone, because I don't think we've reached that stage. Might we reach that stage? We very well might. So we have to let it play out. I think that this thing is probably going to be over sooner in December rather than later, even though we won't get the actual portal entry until January 2nd for whoever it is that goes into the portal. And I'm predicting that one of Nebraska's returning starters will go in the portal, because I just think that's the way it is in college sports today. But I think you get into December, and that will become something that's known. It'll get sorted out fairly quick after the Iowa game.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna start to move into some offseason stuff, and they'll have a bowl game, and there will be individual player meetings, and intentions will be known within the next couple weeks. I would assume. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, Mitch. It really feels like it's trending that direction at this point. But we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks. By the way, before we take our first break here, so Nebraska, I forgot about this, just 3 weeks ago was an underdog at UCLA. So they won that game. And so, but before that, if it seems like it's been longer, they were a 1.5 underdog against Purdue at home in 2023. That was Rhule's first year, and they had a great defensive performance that day. Nearly blew the game late, but then got away. I think they had a big special teams play, like a field goal block return for a touchdown in that game. And then they were underdogs against Illinois that year, won 20-7, big third down stop, Riley Van Poppel. So there's been 3 since Rhule has been here. And then before that, it was the Iowa game in 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I'm thankful, Connor, that you looked that up. So, in the spirit of today. Okay, when we come back, is Matt Rhule too nice? That's next. But we have a word right now from a new sponsor, new and old sponsor of the podcast. It is Omaha Steaks. The holidays, they always feel a little easier when you know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending someone something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week right now is the best time to jump in, because the cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. I have given Omaha Steaks as gifts before, and the reaction is always the same. It's excitement when the box arrives, big smiles when everything hits the grill. The quality is exactly what you hope. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. And the variety is underrated. Omaha Steaks has burgers, comfort meals, side dishes, desserts, and of course, those famous steaks. It's one of those gifts that truly fits anyone. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's Omaha Steaks, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details.
All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Sorry, we're all thrown off today, but here we are. You're good. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today, and making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We are thankful for you all. If we haven't said it before, we'd like to reiterate that point again. But as Mitch mentioned before the break, Scott in Windsor has this question. Do you think, he says, Happy Thanksgiving, Scott. Do you think Matt Rhule,
Scott, do they celebrate Thanksgiving in Windsor?
Oh yeah. Happy American Thanksgiving, he's saying. Do you think Matt Rhule is too nice, too congenial, also too complimentary to opposing coaches and programs to coach a Power 4 team to a playoff victory and beyond? Does the head coach need to be more of a Richard? The leader sets the tone.
No. He's not. Like, we're the specific example that Scott is pointing to about Matt Rhule complimenting other coaches at his press conferences. I think it's fairly common for coaches to do that. I mean, are you saying that he's too heartfelt? Because Tom Osborne would come into the room every week at Nebraska, and one of the first things he would talk about was how good the team was that Nebraska was preparing to play. And he might mention the coach, he might not, but this was not a problem. Like, it didn't soften up the players in the locker room. They didn't think, well, coach thinks that Bill Snyder is a nice guy, so we probably just ought to go out there and lay down. No, and maybe comparing it to the Osborne era is a fool's errand, because the program was so much better then than it is now. I don't know, but whatever it is that ails Nebraska today, and there are a lot of things, I don't believe it's because Matt Rhule is too complimentary of opposing coaches. Maybe this is like something that's said a little bit in jest, and we're not like seriously considering this, but no, I don't think he's too nice.
I think I wish the program had a little bit more of an edge to it, but that doesn't have anything to do with what Rhule says about coaches at press conferences. Like he said,
and like I totally get your point, Scott. Like the leader sets the tone, and should Matt Rhule should he have more of I think he has a hard edge. I mean, you've seen him on the locker room speeches. You've seen him on the behind the scenes documentary. It's like he can be a very nice, approachable, engaging person. And then he can also be kind of a hard ass. So that's I don't believe that's an issue within the program.
Yeah. Here is Brendan. Why does it seem like every time Matt Rhule goes into the week talking about how much respect or admiration he has for another coach or program, it seems like the Huskers lose their edge and don't show up? For example, PJ Fleck in Minnesota, Terry Smith at Penn State. Is that what we should expect for this week after his comments on Phil Parker?
No, we just answered that. I don't think that there's a correlation there. But it's interesting that people are noticing that and going down that road. I think that's grasping just a bit. It's putting two and two together when it's not. They're not actually the same topic.
I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, like as far as this stuff is concerned, but I think that Nebraska should lean harder, and it doesn't have anything to do with what they say at press conferences. It doesn't have anything to like you could say we respect Iowa, and then behind closed doors, I think you got to be like, I think I make a highlight montage of all the times that they've won in Memorial Stadium over the last decade, which is every time. And like, I'm showing it to them and saying, do I need to say anything else? Like this should get inside of your core and burn, like stuff like that. And I'm sure they're doing that to a certain extent.
Show them Marshall Meter, the backup kicker for Iowa, who hit the 38-yard field goal after Nebraska threw the interception with 15 seconds left. That was not Marshall Meter who was blowing the kisses. I just said the kicker's name on the pod on the crossover pod. No, Drew Stevens was the kicker last year. He's the kicker this year. Keith Duncan blew the kisses. Yeah, show them a video montage of that. So Matt Rhule is not talking about how great of a defensive coach Phil Parker is when he talks to the team, but he does talk to the team through press conferences too. So totally dismissing this as a viable question.
Samantha writes in.
Yeah.
Love the show. I'm curious if you think they will do another volleyball day in Nebraska in the near future. And I think it would be especially cool if it would follow a national championship.
Well, it could happen. It could happen next August in following a national championship if Nebraska stays on track for
whatever happens next year will follow a national championship. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're winning.
You think so? All right, you're calling it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Huskers and Penn State on Friday night on Black Friday at the Devaney Center, and then Ohio State on Saturday before the selection show Sunday. Yeah, I think they'll try to do another one. I think Troy Dannon wants to do everything that he can to monetize Memorial Stadium, and this is a big way to do it because it would again fill the seats. I'm confident in saying that they would again fill the whole thing. Like, it's such an event that it's the kind of thing that people would buy tickets to just to say they were there. Like, it was there. People still talk about that so much in the volleyball community about what that meant for the sport and did for the sport and for women's sports in general. And I think it would be a tougher ticket next time than it was in 2023. But as you see with the recent announcement that Zach Bryan is headed to Memorial Stadium in April, they're looking for things to do. And this one is right there in front of them. They already know how to do this. The only thing in their way is that the logistics of playing a volleyball match outside are really, really complex and more complex than having a concert. Because if it rains in a concert, everybody just has a good time. Right. Or if it's windy, it doesn't matter. But you need to you can't. It's a big risk because the weather might not cooperate. We live in Nebraska, so. But yeah, I think they'll try it again.
I would love to see it. I think you got to push it forward a little bit. If you do it, maybe it's against Texas or something like that. Maybe it's a national championship rematch. In a game that really, really counts. So I think that first one was so special. It was magical. But yeah, push it forward a little bit, and I have no doubt that 90,000 more people will show up.
That would be incredible. I mean, kind of part of the idea of doing it against Omaha was that, well, if this doesn't work, then you didn't ruin a marquee match. And if you do bring in Stanford for this, then or Texas, you do have the backup option if the weather destroys it to just move it to the Devaney Center. So, yeah, Coach, they should go if it doesn't work in the stadium, then they should just walk around the east side and they should play it at the Coliseum.
Seems logistically very
for old time's sakes. If you have a ticket, we're gonna mark 4% of the tickets with some kind of a special notation, and that says that you can go into the Coliseum and take a seat.
What was the movie? What was the movie where Matt Damon and Kristen Wiig they get like shrunk, or Matt Damon gets like shrunk down into a tiny version of himself? It was filmed in Omaha. Downsizing. So everybody in the stadium, if the game gets rained out, goes through the downsizing procedure, and then they could fit all of them into the Coliseum. There we go.
That was an Alexander Payne special. Yeah. I saw that and don't remember anything about it.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, let's do one more before we take another timeout here for a second.
Sure.
It's Nathan in Kansas. I know you guys probably hear it a lot, but you truly put on a great show every morning. Well, thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that. Dreading another long off season without Husker football games, but we've got the Locked On Nebraska podcast and Husker Hoops to get us through. Who is a true or redshirt freshman that has not played much this year that you expect to take a significant leap or potentially start next year for the Huskers? Go Big Red and beat Iowa.
We will get to Nathan's updated maps in the next segment to lead off the next segment because we have a question with a location attached to it. I got two for you, Nathan. Christian Jones on the defensive side, who was somebody that Nebraska liked coming out of the spring last year, even played with the ones some in practice, but just hasn't been able to. He had some lingering injury stuff, and it just didn't work for him to to impact the defense this year. So they valued his season and redshirted him. And then on the offensive side, Jeremiah Jones. Heard a lot of talk about Jeremiah Jones and the great size that he brought to the wide receiver group. But he was a late arrival, came to Nebraska in the summer, early part of the summer, and it was better to get him a year on the bench. But you know who he looks like? Yeah, he has to play like this guy, and that's a too high of a bar. He looks like Jeremiah Smith, the Ohio State wide receiver who is soon going to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I guess that's probably still a year away since he's just a true sophomore. But Nebraska's Jeremiah has all of the same, like from a physical appearance standpoint, qualities.
Yeah, those are a couple good ones. We'll go with them. All right, quick timeout. We'll be back and try and get through the rest of them next. But I want to remind you a little bit about the FanDuel Sportsbook, where the NBA is back. There's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the association. So you can get this. You can miss the start of the game if you want. Gone are the days where when the game starts, it's just over for you and you have to wait until the next game starts. No. It could be the third quarter, the fourth quarter. You could jump in on live bets with the FanDuel Sportsbook, or if you're a little bit more timely, jump in before the game. Same game parlays, they're available for you. Season-long bets, it's all there on FanDuel. It's a way to get every game a little bit more exciting. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Final segment of this show. Happy Thanksgiving. Mitch Sherman and Connor Happer with you. We have more questions to get to, and we'll get to all of them. We can take a few extra minutes today if that is needed. From Eric in SoCal. So SoCal has some spots here on the map. There's the map. Thank you, YouTube. We look a little light, actually, in that part of the country. There is a pin out there in SoCal. I know for a fact that this question came from Orange County. So Nathan, if you're listening, you can put one in that part of the Los Angeles metro area. And here's our world map that you can see some dots over there in Asia and Europe and the South Pacific and up in Alaska that doesn't fit on the lower 48 map. So, all right, good stuff. Thank you. Back to us. In this current NIL environment, says Eric, where there is a salary cap on teams, but many workarounds, does it make sense to pay coaches and significant staff anything anymore? In the good old days, one of the main jobs of the coaches was recruiting. The best coaches were really the best recruiters. Now writing the best check basically does the job. Assuming a program doesn't have unlimited funds, why not just grab a capable coach, maybe a good local high school coach, triple his salary, and use the other $8+ million a year that you would spend on a head coach to get the best quarterback out there all the time? I'm not sure it's that simple, but am I onto something?
Well, maybe. I think they're probably could afford to be a little bit of a flattening as far as that is concerned, but it would have to be across college football. It can't, your edge as a program can't be pay our coach less and pay our players more, because then somebody's just going to come in and take your coach and pay him more. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, but what if you don't actually need to have a great coach? What if you don't even need to have a great coach? So I disagree with the premise that you don't need a good coach,
right?
Like that you could just put a high school coach into the seat and he's going to be able to coach up the five. It's not just about having the best talent. Like that's a big thing, correct, but there has to be a balance there, and you still need to have a capable coach. So yeah. I do think you'll see a reduction in the buyouts or like a flattening that you mentioned. I think the buyouts are out of control, and the like when the entire coaching roster nationally turns over, I don't believe that the buyouts are going to just escalate in the way that salaries typically do. Like it is a bit out of control.
The problem with everything in college football is that if you're not doing it, there will be someone who does it, and then that person will go to that place. You know, so if coaches are picking their destinations based on the buyouts alone,
then, I question those agents a bit. I question those coaches a bit. I think you can still attract good coaches with reasonable and still very, very heavy buyouts. But like the 50, 60, $100 million stuff, I don't know that those contracts are going to continue to be written in the way that they are. We'll see.
Here's Adam. In the Big Ten, is Dana Holgorsen facing the best defensive coaches and players of his career as an offensive coordinator? And if he is, should we look at the overall performance of the offense this year as a step in the right direction? And then he's got a second question. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, we'll just answer that one quick. I think he is. I think like the depth and like across the board coaching ability in the Big Ten is better than what Dana saw in the Big 12. Yes, especially from the defensive coordinators. Yes.
Yeah, the coaches top to bottom in the Big Ten are, there's no margin for error there. And then his bonus question is, I'm really scared that Iowa's strengths match up with Nebraska's weaknesses better than any other team we've played all year. If they were able to beat us last year in a game where we could stop the run and their fans only had 5 plays to celebrate all game, why should we expect to even keep this one close? Well, I can answer that last question because it's Nebraska-Iowa, and it just will be. Take that one to the bank, except for 2017, and that's basically it, right? That's the only game that hasn't been close.
2013, I think, had some Iowa running away from Nebraska tendencies. Was that like 37-14? I think that was the score in 2013. What are you finding there?
So Nebraska, Iowa won by 3 last year, 3 the year before. Nebraska won by a touchdown the year before. Iowa won by a touchdown the year before. Iowa won by 6 the year before, 3 the year before, 3 the year before. 56-14 in 17. That was horrendous. 16 was the bloodbath practices, 40-10, and at the end of that season, a touchdown the year before that, 3 points the year before that, 38-17 and 13, and then we're talking about 6-point games. Just one 6-point.
So Iowa's had three sizable wins. Nebraska has had no sizable wins. All close Nebraska wins.
Yeah,
and then the
Nebraska ain't getting blown out.
Yeah,
they're not getting blown out.
I don't think that's in the cards this week at all. In fact, I predicted 13-10 because that's what's happened the last 2 years. So
that's what I said.
We did that independently of each other. So I predicted that during the crossover pod on Thursday with Trent, and you also. So we have the same score.
Well, who do you have winning?
Oh, I have Iowa winning.
Me too.
Yeah.
13-10 Iowa. Just field goal at the end of the game. Just lock it in. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the crossover pod. I
didn't. Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't.
No, I know you didn't because you didn't know who I had winning. Couple of food questions. Yeah.
Greg and Broken Arrow. Do you prefer? This is specifically at me, which we could talk about that later. Hi, fellas. Connor, do you prefer sweet potato or pumpkin pie? Happy Thanksgiving.
Greg does not value my opinion.
I'm not a pie guy. If there is going to be a pie, it will be just a plain old pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving. That's really my one slice of pie a year.
Oh. Yeah, I don't eat a lot of pie.
Yeah.
I always think about it.
But you don't have a cheesecake on Thanksgiving.
I always think about it. I always think around when the pie barn opens up at Vallis, I always think I want to go out there and just buy some pies. And then I think about parking and you can get in for free to get pies. You can get a little food pass, but then the clock starts and they're like, if you're not back here in 15 minutes, we're going to charge you $68 at one-time admission or whatever it is. You could probably get away with it if you went 1 minute over, but they're very nice. They're very, very nice people who run the pumpkin patch. And then some years I do make it out there to get a pie, or you can just swing through Village Inn. But Greg doesn't want my opinion, so I'm not going to talk about pie.
Yeah.
Sorry, you don't get it.
You are not the authority on pies. I am. Brett Windsor, as an outsider to this heated debate, better field corn versus better sweet corn, Nebraska versus Iowa.
I know nothing about corn.
I know that my mom's side of the family, basically the entire family is farmers in central Nebraska. And I know that they have excellent field. Well, I mean, the quality of field corn I can't speak to because I don't eat the field corn, but I do eat the sweet corn, and it is wonderful. It's fantastic.
Okay. So Nebraska's got it. We live in Nebraska. We're just going to say Nebraska has better sweet corn. And the field corn just tastes the same everywhere for the animals. Who eats field corn? Do the cows eat it? I know very little about who eats
Don't eat the field
on
corn.
A farm. From Joe in Eastern Oregon. I'm not as upset with the line play being part of being scheme. I think it doesn't seem like they have any clue how to set the edge. When was the last time a team went wide that the opponent didn't get a 7+ yard run? The guys always seem to lose containment. I've coached some high school, and I'd be upset with my players if they consistently lost containment. That said, Penn State is a solid team.
Yeah, they do.
Is it about the? I'm not sure. Is Joe saying it's about the scheme or it's about the players?
I think he's saying it's at least in that game.
He's saying it's more on the scheme. Yeah, it's more on the scheme. Let's before we answer that, let's also read Jordan from the UK because it's the same answer. I think he's suggesting something similar. So Jordan's got a lot to say, but I'll try to summarize this. He says, I enjoy your commentary. It's the most grounded conversation in the Nebraska media sphere. I want to ask a question about the state of the blame game surrounding Nebraska's woes. I understand good leadership is taking the flack for everything that happens in your program. Rhule does it all the time, but I can't help but notice that a lot of the blame is on the coaches. I think our coaches are actually solid. They have their downs, but solid nonetheless. I'm in the boat that actually most of our problems stem from bad execution on the player level. I think it drives Rhule up a wall to constantly shoulder that his players sometimes simply don't show up to play, although he does a lot to prepare them for games. So Jordan is a Matt Rhule guy. This is why I think a lot is on our players. The portal gutted our D-line. We don't have a D lineman above 300 pounds. We have a very young and inexperienced. We have a lot of turnover these first few years on the roster, causing us not to reach a place with many developed players. So why are people blaming it on the coaches and not able to shine a light on this?
Well, I mean, you could look at that a couple different ways. If you feel like Nebraska is just outmanned on the defensive line, and I felt like that for a lot of the Penn State game, just running it right at them. Like there's nothing they really could have done. Is that on the players or is that on the people who build the roster who put the people in the position? Yeah. Right. So I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to, Nebraska, needs to go into the portal and get some older experienced defensive linemen to help plug things up in the middle there. It helps if you're stronger up there. With that being said, I think the coaches have done a pretty good job of figuring out ways to, in general this year, ways to scheme around the fact that they are a little light up front. They have a good pass defense. With that being said, they get out of position sometimes. Everybody does. Generally, I think the defense has been pretty good this year, and I know it's hard coming off of that last game because it certainly didn't look that way. But I think they've made a pretty decent meal with the ingredients that they've been given this season on defense.
I don't know. I think that a bad run defense kind of overshadows all that's been solid. And that's a tough thing to say. And maybe that's recency bias because of what Penn State did to Nebraska. I don't want to just completely throw in the gutter Nebraska's strengths on pass defense, but I think part of the reason that Nebraska is good on pass defense is because opponents have looked at Nebraska and said, we don't even need to throw the ball. We can just run it at them. Sure. Like these two questions, I'm looking back at Joe's question, which I had a hard time reading because I just copied and pasted it straight out of the email without looking at it before we got to the show today. And I think he's definitely saying that it's more on the coaches, like scheme, more on the coaches. Yeah. And Jordan is saying it's more on the players. So there are clearly two ways to look at this. And it's hard to say that it's not on the players. Like, they have to be the ones to go out there and execute it. But then, to your point, the coaches need to put the players in the right position and recruit the right players and build the right scheme so that it works for the players. Is there not a defensive scheme that works for Nebraska with the personnel it has this year to better stop the run? I have a hard time believing that.
I think they misfired a little bit on how, they were trying to make up for the fact that they weren't going to be as big on up front on defense with a little bit more explosiveness, right? They were going to try and be more aggressive, and they just haven't got to the quarterback this year. I mean, they haven't got that pass rush that they really need. So I think they misfired on that a little bit. That throws your whole math equation off. There's a lot at play there.
And the coaches also could have directed the program to allocate more money for defensive size in the offseason. So
sure.
I think there's more responsibility on the coaches, but clearly the players have to do their part. From Patrick in Pilger, last question. What is the truth? Is Nebraska versus Iowa a rivalry or not? Along with most Nebraska fans, I believe it is, but it's amazing how many Iowa fans and media downplay the rivalry. Nebraska hasn't won enough in the matchup. If that's the case, then why do you guard your field logo? Why do you blow kisses? Why do Twitter trolls spend so much time in Nebraska comment sections? Why do other Big Ten schools lean into the Nebraska has better corn jokes? I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I think when Iowa downplays it, like quote unquote downplays it, they're not actually downplaying it. They're just trolling you by saying Nebraska hasn't won enough because that's what Nebraska used to say early when Nebraska had won all the, before they joined the Big Ten. So Iowa fans, Iowa players, Iowa coaching staff love beating Nebraska. I
think they all feel it on both sides.
And
fans,
Nebraska,
coaches, players.
Yes. Yeah. I still feel like there's more of an edge that they could put toward this game a little bit, but to answer the question in full, yes, 100 million%. Yes, it is.
Whether you're one of the guys who comes out and says, absolutely, it means more. We put so much into this game. We think about it in the summer, whether you're somebody who says that, or you're like Henry Lutovsky, who you would think might be like that because he's Iowa born and raised. And Henry's response always when asked about Iowa is, I don't know. I don't really like them that much. I mean, and not say he's like, I don't really think about them that much. He said he grew up a Notre Dame fan and it's just a regular game to him. I think that's his way of handling this, but I do think he cares. I do think he cares more than he does about a regular game. It's just not admitting it is a good way to kind of, like you said, to kind of troll them.
Yep, no doubt. Okay, great stuff, everybody. Thanks for all the thoughts on the mailbag today, and we'll be back with you for a reaction show at some point after the game on Black Friday. So for Mitch Sherman, I'm Connor Happer. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out Locked On Big Ten. It's on YouTube. It's wherever you get your podcasts, and it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.